We zero in our focus. And that's where those live events can really shine. And they often convert substantially higher than some of our other digital marketing efforts. Hi there, Kelsey Toner here, the founder of Guest Focused Tour Business Coaching, where every day myself and our exceptional team of tour and activity business coaches are helping you build a thriving, profitable tour business. This entire series is all about multi-day tour marketing, meaning we're going to be learning best practices and sharing from our multi-day coaches and some of the most successful multi-day operators on the planet, successful marketing tips, tricks, hacks, and the stuff that's going to help you ultimately generate more leads and more sales. Now, all of this series leverages our VIP marketing method, which is a practical framework for helping you attract, connect with, and ultimately convert your ideal target guests. How do we do that? Well, the VI and the P is an acronym where our marketing needs to deliver value. We need to be intimate with our marketing, build trust and rapport, and ultimately be pervasive, meaning we're showing up where our ideal target guests are spending their time across multiple channels. If you haven't checked out that series on the VIP marketing method, I highly recommend getting started there first. In this particular video, we are going to be talking about in-person events and live meetups to sell multi-day tours. So selling through live events and meetups might seem kind of old school, or maybe for some of you, you're like, well, yeah, that's how we do most of our sales. But for a lot of folks, it might feel a little bit unsexy compared to all of the new online tools and targeting and things that we have. But it is honestly one of the most effective ways to build trust, to build rapport, to stay top of mind and have a very personal face-to-face touch point when it comes time for people to make their buying and booking decisions. In-person events let you deliver real value while building that trust face-to-face. According to Event Marker, 87% of consumers say live events help them feel more connected to a company than digital marketing alone. But this is where we get to our first best practices. We want your events to be delivering value, meaning education, inspiration, or entertainment. You are not running sales presentations. Or put another way, you're running educational or inspirational workshops that happen to position you as an expert they should book with, and then we can bookend with a special offer. Now, your in-person and live meetups or events could focus on different stages of the traveler's journey, meaning we could be in the dreaming phase where we're focused a little bit more on inspiration. But I would recommend starting with that planning phase where people are probably a little bit further down that journey. Maybe they've selected a destination and now they're starting to do a little bit more research. They're starting to think about maybe what time of year. So we love sessions that focus on that particular planning phase of the traveler journey. In there, there's going to be all kinds of questions, concerns, hesitations, potentially objections. And so if you've been following along with the VIP marketing method, you'll know that we have some AI prompts that can help you brainstorm pain points and challenges, ideas for lead magnets, ideas for online workshops, or even just content for your blog. These can all work as topics for your in-person meetup. One of the first things I would do is pull up your Google Analytics or your website and have a look at some of your best performing blog posts. Maybe your lead magnet could be repurposed as an event where we're talking about the 7 most costly mistakes that Atlantic Canadian travelers make when booking multi-day travel. That's a great educational session that we could run for other groups, or you could host yourself in a particular destination. And we've got a real value proposition there, a real hook, you'll notice, to get people to come to that event. And this can be a lot more compelling than, hey, come hear us talk at you about our upcoming trips, or maybe even just an open Q&A about upcoming trips. By having a clear hook to your event, you're going to not only increase the number of people who might register interest and ultimately attend, but you're also going to be qualifying them as well. Here's a sample AI prompt that can help you brainstorm. Create 5 educational in-person workshop topics for insert your ideal target guests interested in your destination or your niche. Focus on solving specific planning challenges, addressing common fears, or sharing insider knowledge. Make each event title have a compelling hook and create 3 benefit-driven bullets for those that attend. The goal is to position yourself as a helpful expert who is helping them solve their problems or helping them achieve their dream scenarios, and to make sure that they're actually going to receive some real tangible benefits from attending. And this is not just going to be a sales presentation, and this is not just going to be a tour operator trying to sell them something. Well, many folks who run tour businesses, and probably you yourself, are pretty comfortable communicating in front of groups and hosting this type of event, which is great. That's a real advantage in business over people who might work in other industries. But let's take a beat to talk about the structure of this live event. While we don't want it to be just a sales presentation and come across as too salesy, the other mistake we can make is not having a clear call to action, not having a special offer that ties in a bit of urgency as well. So here is what we recommend. We start with obviously a brief intro of who you are, your company, and maybe some of your background or expertise. This should be very, very brief. But here is where I want to introduce the concept of bookending. So what we're going to do with the special offer, now this might be an invitation to get their deposit in for an upcoming trip, and maybe that unlocks a special discount. Maybe you're giving them access to a new trip before anyone else online. Maybe if they get their deposit in the next week, they're entered into a draw for a room upgrade, or there's a VIP experience that they can attend, but it's only for people who get that deposit in or get their booking in before a certain date. You'll notice here that all of these are time bound. You want to have a very specific offer that's going to add some urgency, and you're going to have a clear call to action. So with bookending, what we're going to do is we're going to mention that special offer and the call to action right at the beginning of the presentation. Maybe just 2 to 3 minutes, not going into a whole lot of detail, but we do want to hook their curiosity and we do want to make them aware of that special opportunity. Then we have the session itself. Now this is probably going to be at least 30 minutes or so of just real value, no sales presentations at all. Again, you can have certain talking points. You can make this section more interactive if you would like, but then at the end, make sure we circle back to that special opportunity. You give the details, and most importantly, have that call to action. Now, to avoid that feeling of being overly salesy, we typically recommend extending the timeline to take advantage of that offer to maybe a few days or even a week after the event itself. I wouldn't push too far beyond that. And by all means, encourage people to make a deposit there. Sometimes people who come to these events might be past customers. There might be people who are a great fit. And if they want to get their deposit in at the event, we want to make sure that we have a way to do that. However, making it feel kind of like one of those timeshare proposals in Las Vegas where you're in a room, it feels like you can't really escape until you sign on the dotted line. That's typically not the feeling that we're looking to create. But extending this out of say, hey, we'd love to take you on a trip sometime, that's not going to work either. So make sure it's time bound, make sure that there's a clear call to action. So for example, if they're not ready to put down a deposit, maybe you have a QR code or you have a coupon code or something like that, we want to make sure that one, we're collecting the contact information from this live event. So that can be via a registration form or an RSVP form. But more importantly, we would say also collect the contact information there on site. That can be done again with a QR code or some kind of opt-in where you can send them essentially the details of that special offer. But keep in mind that you can set up a call to action to book a call with one of your team members. We love using sites like Schedule Once or Calendly where people can take that micro commitment of like, hey, let's have a conversation maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday, or what's a good time from you? Hey, use this QR code or link. Let's book a time. Encourage them to get that in their calendar. That's what we mean by micro commitment, where you can have that conversation and say that's the best way if they have a little more time for questions, that type of thing. But you know what? The best part about being at a live event is that you should be willing to stick around after the event, because that's where some of those important conversations can happen. You can overcome objections, spend a little bit more time with people. But if they gotta go, make sure that you have that easy way to schedule a call with them in the coming week. What are some other best practices for collecting contact info and identifying your warmest prospects? As mentioned, we highly recommend requiring an email address for event registration or entry. Another best practice used by some of our coaching members is that you have some sort of digital resource or download that's associated with the presentation itself. And then you can either hand around a sign-up sheet, and anyone who puts their name and email down can get that digital resource. We highly recommend making the special offer feel exclusive, using language like, everyone here tonight gets access to our early bird pricing, but only until next Friday. As much as possible, you want this urgency and exclusivity to be real, meaning this isn't available on your website. As much as possible, make booking or getting a deposit in easy, using simple QR codes, maybe linking to a booking page or your calendar. And we highly recommend using simple URLs that might ultimately redirect to those destinations, meaning something that's easy to type into a phone or a browser, like guestfocus.com/book a call. Ultimately, we want to make your offer feel like a natural extension of the value that you've already delivered, not a bait and switch. I remember one of our guest focus coaching members who was based in Chicago. She was a young woman who was taking people to Central and South America, but she was really targeting, obviously, people who lived in the city who it was their first time going to a Latin American country. And so she had a meetup on meetup.com, and she had a themed session every month where we would obviously address some of those concerns and hesitations that many of those first timers had, or those sessions we themed around how to have success on your first time abroad, or Q&A with a veteran traveler who's been through Central America a lot. Come and get your questions answered. But she also set these up as having a social function as well, because she knew that one of the challenges, let's say, of her ideal target guest was finding people to travel with, finding travel companions, and finding other like-minded people who maybe weren't seasoned veteran travelers, but who were at their level. And in this way, her meetups solved multiple problems at once. And most of her bookings, meaning her first 3 to 4 trips as she got this business off the ground, all came from these in-person meetups. Another one of our guest focus members is John and his team at Target Tours here in Eastern Canada. And he hosts in-person events in the maritime cities, these little travel hubs. And that's who their ideal target clients are, these Atlantic Canadians. And he would often share these reports from the road, or when they were releasing their upcoming travel calendar, he was providing education and inspiration on when they could travel next, and sharing some of the stories, sharing some beautiful photos, and talking a bit about why they put together this trip, or hey, here's some of the destinations that were trending or that they were most excited about, and generally providing some tips that, hey, if you would like to go there on your own, we highly recommend checking out these places. And by the way, if you want the easy button, insert the offer. We'd love to have you join us and join fellow maritime travelers on the upcoming destination. So in those two examples, those were tour operators organizing the events themselves. But another best practice is to partner with organizations where your ideal target guests already gather. An example might be photography clubs for photo tour operators where you're delivering value. Hiking groups for adventure operators, or cultural societies for cultural-based tours. By following the best practices we've already outlined, you have a natural in to these partner organizations where you're not just coming in to make sales presentations, but you're actually coming in to deliver real value to those members. Now, each meetup, club, or association is different, and perhaps some might be interested in a more commercial relationship or a longer-term partnership where maybe you're supporting them in some creative ways or potentially even giving commission. But regardless, if your ideal target guests are already gathering in places around your destination, then 100% we want to find a way to get in front of those folks. Now, I hear you. You might be saying, look, Kelsey, my ideal target guests, they're spread all over the world. They're maybe oriented around a particular interest, but maybe they're all over the United States. Well, that is, of course, an issue. You can decide whether or not live events make sense for you. But what we often find as tour and activity business coaches is that we are trying to spread ourselves too thin with our marketing efforts. Maybe instead of trying to reach everyone in the United States who happens to have that particular interest or that hobby, or they fit that demographic profile, we zero in our focus. We only focus on, for example, that profile, that person, people with those interests in the San Francisco Bay Area. And that's where those live events can really shine. And they often convert substantially higher than some of our other digital marketing efforts that kind of get lost in the noise. If you haven't done this type of in-person meetup or event before, let's just keep things simple for your first few. Libraries or other community centers sometimes have rooms that have a projector or presenter that might help you if you have some visual assets that you want to bring along. But also having a more social meetup in a wine bar or local restaurant also has some other advantages. Maybe you could provide some simple appetizers. Maybe you can have some handouts in terms of your visual assets. Don't let the tech and logistics keep you from testing out your first event. Highly recommend promoting that event, obviously a month to 2 weeks in advance, making sure people are registering. So that gives you the ability to do what? Well, 1, ideally give them some way to add it to their calendar. 2, we can have email reminders. And if you collect a phone number, you can also have text message reminders. And some of these are built into some of the meetup tools that are already out there. There's a few different key metrics for tracking ROI for these live and in-person events. Obviously, email signups and registrations is one metric, the number of planning calls that may be booked off an event, and of course, any deposits or tour bookings that come from those events. And honestly, that's all there really is to it. Of course, you can get more and more complicated with these events or get more and more sophisticated with retargeting and automated follow-ups, but more than anything, we want to get you in the mindset of delivering value with these sessions because it engages that principle of reciprocity. If you give freely to others and are genuinely helpful, they're much more likely to ultimately return the favor or much more likely to engage with you and take some of the next steps. And even if they don't buy, what you now have is an invaluable touch point for 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, maybe even a year or two down the road. These in-person touch points are significantly more memorable, impactful, and valuable for your marketing efforts. The final often overlooked benefit for doing these types of in-person and live events is when you do have that call to action or a special offer, you are going to be there face-to-face with people and you can investigate a little bit more. You can ask some probing questions if they're excited by the offer, and if not, why? And other objections, concerns, or hesitations that we may not get if they're just looking privately on a laptop or on a mobile device in their own homes. So let's not overlook that incredible ability to not only get intel about your existing offers, but maybe also get some intel on how you might tweak them, how you might uncover new opportunities that are shared by people there. And you could even do some polling if you wanted to build that into your presentation. Okay, so let's get started. Use that AI prompt to do some brainstorming about the types of topics that you feel you could cover. Get a date on the calendar and choose that special offer and make it as exclusive as possible. In the comments down below, I would love to hear your ideas for in-person events, or if you yourself have leveraged these events in the past, feel free. I would warmly welcome any best practices that you use or that you've tapped into, or maybe that you've seen other people in our industry use. Want some help planning your next in-person event, or even just to talk through whether or not this strategy makes sense for your multi-day tours? I'm extending a personal invitation to book a free call with one of our tour business coaches. You can learn more at guestfocus.com/book a call. It's a free 45-minute strategy call. We'd love to help you out. If you found value in this video, it would mean the world to us if you shared it with a friend or a colleague, and we'll see you in the next video.